Hi, this is John Swin. This video was uploaded originally on the Expose the Enemy YouTube channel and backed up on our Odyssey and Rumble channels. I have a website, exposetheenemy.com, and I'm still on X but not very active, at JON_SWINN. This was recorded on the 2nd of September 2023. I recently uploaded a series of videos of the Antidotes podcast titled Who Has the Compromat? For those unaware of John Mark Dougan, he claims to be a whistleblower shedding light on police corruption that he encountered during his spell as a police officer. Dougan's claims are just that, claims, and upon further investigation it turns out Dougan has misappropriated the distinction of whistleblower, using smear campaigns against former employees to build the image of a whistleblower as an attempt to distract from or cover up his own history of failings and corruption as a police officer. That includes sexual harassment, as well as targeting those he has personal grievances with. Dougan has honed his skills at developing and disseminating websites with an air of legitimacy, such as dcweekly.com and dcpost.org, and has become a master at making hoaxes that go viral, such as the one accusing Sheriff Rick Bradshaw of encouraging drivers to run over Black Lives Matter activists. On one of the websites, a fabricated admission to pedophilia that was ascribed to a police officer was published. In 2015, Dougan flirted on the phone with a former investigator called Lewis who worked for Sheriff Bradshaw in Palm Beach County by posing as a woman named Jessica and using voice-altering software to do so. The sheriff had previously hired a consultant in 2012 to look into Dougan, and that's why he became a target of Dougan. Lewis hired a hacker to steal information from Dougan's websites and social media through clever social engineering. Lewis was able to link the suspicious Jessica to Dougan, whom he previously investigated. Jessica wasn't the only fictitious persona Dougan hid behind. After learning that his websites were hacked, Dougan created the Bad Wolf Russian hacker persona, inspired by Lewis's discussion of a Russian cybercrime group when he was posing as Jessica and his pursuit for retaliation. It wasn't enough for him to go after Lewis and Sheriff Bradshaw. He wanted to hit out at other police officers, federal agents and county officials. With his computer skills, he used a geomarketing firm's bug to get their private addresses. Dougan published over 14,000 addresses that he had illegally obtained on one of his websites, then placed the blame on a fictitious Russian hacker named Bad Wolf. On March 14, 2016, FBI agents entered his home, seeking information about a Russian hacker. Confident in the future results of the investigation, Dougan took his friend's car and, with a wig on his head, leaving his ex-wife and 2 children, headed for the border with Canada. Once in Toronto, he boarded a flight to Moscow, where he requested political asylum. The former policeman and hacker received temporary status in February 2017 and in December 2018 became a permanent resident. In 2018, Dougan published a book presenting a real-life account of Bad Wolf. In reality, many details of the story had been changed to the point of fabricating hacking stories, going so far as to claim responsibility for the 2016 Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton campaign email leaks. So he moved to Russia, and during the period he is waiting for his political asylum to be approved, he takes credit for Russian state crimes against the United States and perpetuates Russian fake news stories. Dougan attributed the identity of his source to Seth Rich, a 27-year-old DNC staffer killed in a July 2016 shooting in Washington, D.C. The unsolved murder allowed Dougan to fuel conspiracy theories surrounding his death. His book, as well as a film about him, was advertised on the Russian TV channel RT. We can safely presume that this work was carried out for the Russian state in order for him to get his political asylum request approved. Which, one could argue, is a point against Dougan having compromising material that he claims he possesses. One could logically conclude that if he had such materials, he'd be given permanent asylum without having to go through all these other hoops on behalf of the Russian state and become such a pro-Putin propagandist. After all of this, the disgraced Dougan injected himself into the Jeffrey Epstein story following his 2016 arrest becoming a major news story. Dougan claimed on Facebook in July 2019 that he possessed confidential details. Dougan claimed on Facebook in July 2019 that he possessed confidential documents, including hours of footage taken from the billionaire pedophile's Florida mansion that no one had seen. Well, that last bit depends on which tale Dougan tells, because in other claims he's made, he stated that the FBI seized all the evidence that he still has backup copies of. Needless to say, Dougan hasn't proven any of his claims and has created another elaborate story as to why that is. But he uses this version of the story to claim that the FBI is covering up Prince Andrew's role in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Yet Dougan, who hasn't previously mentioned any of this information regarding the trove of evidence, expects us to believe that he has sat on this for 15 years. It is ridiculous. In doing some follow-up research, I came across an article while looking into John Mark Dougan, which would be of interest to those in the Jeffrey Epstein research community. The article is titled "Dirty by Dougan, US Police Chief Exposes Trail of quote, Fraud, Felony and Fantasy," unquote, by John Mark Dougan, and the article is by Jordan James and is published on the 23rd of May 2020. The article starts, "A US police chief deputy has made damning allegations surrounding quote Russian porn and former Palm Beach copper John Mark Dougan, who told Politicalite last week that he quote has never claimed to have videos of Prince Andrew unquote, despite MI6 fears." Palm Beach County Police Deputy Mike Gager, who served as the Senior Executive Staff Officer for the Department of Law Enforcement Operations and Corrections, accused the Russian runaway of being a quote total fraud with a quote long history of alleged lies, defamation, sexual harassment and corruption. Politicalite can exclusively reveal. Gager, a chief deputy with over 49 years of service in Palm Beach, spoke exclusively to Politicalite after Dougan and a Jeffrey Epstein activist named Kirby Summers tried to dupe Politicalite with fake photos and allegations against the NBC executive accusing him of pedophilia. Dougan, who now lives in Moscow, was alleged to have multiple behaviour issues by his former colleague, who accused Deep State Doug of spending most of his Palm Beach police patrols hitting on women and creating problems wherever he went. Gager branded Dougan a lying, cheating fraud who was orchestrating dozens of smear campaigns against him to keep up with his facade, even going so far as to brand the decorated police chief with false accusations of being a child molester to cover his tracks. This claim was backed up when Dougan, in an apparent attempt to intimidate a journalist, began a Twitter smear campaign against Politicalite, accusing the publication of trying to quote get money for a trip to Russia whilst trying to quote contain the damage of a fallout from his fake news Epstein NBC leak. Gager spoke with deep emotion when describing how Mark had branded him a quote pedophile, creating a total living hell for the Florida police bigwig in an attempt to destroy his distinguished career and credibility. Gager told Politicalite, quote, "I don't like to be the centre of attention. I would much rather have this done anonymously, but someone has to stand up to this bully and have him held accountable for all the lives he has damaged," unquote. Despite Dougan trying to destroy Mike's life and reputation, the decorated deputy defiantly said that enough was enough, adding that the whole world had to know about the fantasist who is playing the Russian president out of thousands of rubles with his alleged fantasy of having, quote, dirt on dominant players on the global stage, including Britain's Prince Andrew. Dougan's former boss alleges that ex-Florida cop is, quote, full of bullshit and cannot be trusted, listing a long record of failures and misdemeanors, unquote. Dougan was branded as a serial womanizer by Gauger, who revealed his journey with John Mark Dougan began when he received a letter from Kerry Howitz of the local public defender's office. Michael told Politicalite she extolled the virtues of Dougan and requested we consider him for employment, but examining his dismal work history, he would have been passed over for more qualified candidates. Due to her request, we made an exception and provided him with employment. Ironically, within days of his employment, and while in an orientation class, others in the class remarked of his multiple stories of all he had accomplished and started to question his veracity. During his employment, he created complaints wherever he was assigned. The answer of his superiors was to move him to another geographic area. Problems continued, and finally, he was assigned to the Western Communities. In this district, he engaged in utilising a private computer with other deputies where they embellished interactions with the citizenry. Dougan launched a smear campaign against Gauger, branding him a paedophile, just like he did with NBC boss Steve Burke. He also did the same thing to Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. Gauger added, Dougan's harassment of the local minority community created problems with his direct supervision, who started to hold him accountable. Subsequently, he received multiple actions against his behaviour from his direct superiors, said Chief Gauger. Dougan immediately went on the attack, deleting his embellished comments on a private computer. He reported the other deputies sending their comments to the local newspaper. Dougan's advisors sent complaints to the Internal Affairs Division, where actions were initiated. Dougan was placed on a work performance plan, but if improvements were not made, his employment would be terminated. In addition, the Sheriff's Office received a lawsuit for the actions Dougan took towards a black off-duty deputy who was attending a house party with other minority deputies. The complaint was for loud music, and Dougan utilised his chemical spray against the deputy playing the music. The subsequent jury trial found Dougan's actions reprehensible and awarded hundreds of thousands of dollars to the victimised off-duty deputy. Weeks into his work performance plan, Dougan advised his supervisor that he had to take family medical leave due to a sick relative. He was a total fraud. Later we discovered he flew to Maine and applied to a small municipal police department where he falsified his current status and had a local friend on the sheriff's office provide a reference without referring to the multiple internal affairs cases and a work performance plan he was on. The Wyndham Police Department soon learned that Dougan's behaviour was unacceptable, and multiple complaints of his sexual harassment of females on the department and in the community. He was terminated from the agency, and subsequent lawsuit due to his behaviours cost the agency hundreds of thousands of dollars. Of course, none of this was his fault, and as is his pattern, he blamed everyone else, said Gauger. Dougan opened websites pbsotalk.com and wyndhamtalk.com. On both websites, he claimed to be a corruption fighter. The police chief of Wyndham started receiving anonymous complaints on a cabin rental business he operated. The young female officer who was sexually harassed by Dougan started receiving anonymous complaints and fake stories placed on the internet. The young female officer, Danielle Nelson, won her lawsuit from the devastating actions of Dougan. Dougan then continued attacking the sheriff of Palm Beach County on his website and embellished multiple issues to place the agency in a, quote, bad light. We were not the only ones he attacked. Renton, Washington's mayor and police chief, a school district in Massachusetts, and a small police department in California, all were victims of his false accusations and crude, violent, disgusting photoshopped pictures. Dougan prides himself as a, quote, corruption fighter, said Michael, adding, he currently has arrest warrants for his arrest here in Florida for multiple felonies. In a direct response to Politicalite's expose, Dougan took to Twitter on Friday evening to attack the outlet he tried to dupe with fake pics leaked to BitChute. Dougan told Politicalite last week that he believed a man in this still image taken from a 10-year-old porn video still online was NBC Universal boss Steve Burke. He also claimed that he had never heard of Burke before a journalist pointed it out to him, and said that he never claimed to hold pictures of Prince Andrew. Dougan, who attempted to lure Politicalite to Russia after his leak was exposed as a fake, claimed we had refused after asking for money, despite Dougan offering us his apartment to stay in to view some 700 plus videos he claimed to hold. This is another contradiction. He claimed in one article I read that he didn't have any of the evidence of the Epstein video treasure trove in his possession, and now he's saying to these Politicalite journalists that he has them. So he's obviously trying to use that as a way to luring them to Russia. God knows what would happen to him there. Anyway, Politicalite called his bluff and suggested he would have to cover costs and expenses, given we are a small citizen-based outlet with no major backers, and did no longer see Dougan as a credible source. Dougan was indeed bluffing on his offer, responding to our suggestion that he cover expenses. For as little as 2 days, he said, quote, would see what he could do, unquote, before going on the attack, accusing us of trying to do a, quote, shakedown in multiple enraged emails that we did not respond to. Politicalite also did not feel Dougan's offer was worthwhile or credible given his criminal offences and alleged FBI charges. He later posted a transcript of emailed questions in response to his, quote, Epstein leak in an attempt to discredit this expose on his career as a police officer. He said in a statement on Twitter, I see you keep tagging the Palm Beach sheriff. No doubt he paid you nicely to do just that. You are no journalist at all, just a hack, unquote. So you can see how Dougan's just a perfect candidate to become a Russian troll. I want to add some other details regarding the Steve Burke hoax. When Kirkby Summers was called out on promoting this hoax and was provided a link to the original video which the still images were taken from, she doubled down, insisting the images from John Mark Dougan were legit. Her original tweet has been removed, but luckily someone had copied it. It is odd that Summers is so eager to amplify this hoax on her social media, attempting to get the hoax published on internet news sites and vehemently defend it as legitimate when confronted with evidence it is a hoax. But what is more concerning is her association with John Mark Dougan, an obvious Russian asset. Well, it turns out Summers and Dougan have a lot in common. They are both frauds. You can go through all this information about Summers here. I'll link in the description because it's too much to get into. Now, I've noticed interesting parallels between the political views and narratives John Mark Dougan promotes and Alexander Dougan's Foundation of Geopolitics. Thanks for watching, and please continue your support. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and please join the channel. Your support is needed more than ever.